Hello, again, Tim Kelleher from Pima Community College. We're going to be discussing one of the labs, Lab 9 specifically, for BCT 145. That's our carpentry course here, the college. So let me discuss a few things that are going to go on. Remember that in 145, you have your own toolbox and your tool bags outside in the shed. All this equipment is still out there for you. All right, so please use that equipment and not the stuff inside, to include the saws and the power cords and everything else. We try to keep it separate so you guys have your equipment and it works fine for you. So we're first going to have our carpenter square. I think if they're still located in the same place, they're on the side of the wall locker outside there. All right, be careful with these. If it's really bent and warped out of shape, let us know and we'll just replace it. The almighty utility knife, all right, that's going to sharpen your pencils. You're also going to have a black felt pen because it's kind of hard to really see the pencil marks, and you're just trying to learn how to do this. In the real world, pencil mark, it's it, and you're going to go to it, all right? So there's really two phases in this operation. One phase is happening right here, how to lay it out, how to calculate it. The second phase of this is going to be outside, where you physically have to cut out your work and check it to see if it matches. All right? Excuse me. So, whenever you're working, you always got to keep safety into play. All right? Your sawhorses that you're going to be working off of are outside and locked up. By this time, you know that already, so I shouldn't have to repeat it. I want you to follow along with me with your lab, because you may be viewing this, at a car race or at work or at home or something. All right? So please print out your lab so that you have the correct lab. All right? Preferably never print these out until your lab is coming up. All right? It's going to help save a lot of trouble and pain in the long run, because us, the instructors, may be updating something that was wrong, and we want to get you the right information in there. All right? So please print this off as a last resort at the last minute before you come in and do the lab. So we're familiar with all this equipment. I'm going to just push this out of the way. You're looking over here, and I have two pieces of board, two OSB panels that are pre-cut for you. All right? They're inside the shed, and you just ask the staff, and they'll pull one out for you, or have you pull one out. And if we are, for some reason, out, we'll fix that problem immediately. All right, so you'll see the example one that I have here. You won't have this in the classroom. All right, or excuse me, in the lab. But you'll see how I'll start, and I'm going to explain all this. We're going to first calculate how to get these treads and risers. Then you're going to go down to the lab and physically do this. Again, like I said, with the black marker, we do that in the classroom, so it's a little bit easier as when you're cutting the steps out. All right. Remember, the two power tool, or the one power tool you'll need is the circular saw and your hand saw. All right. We want it done professionally. We don't want to see a bunch of nicks in here where you took the saw too far trying to speed up the process. All right. Because you're going to use a hand saw to cut out that little end of the notch, about 1/4 of an inch. All right. So I'll set this aside. Pull this out. This is our board that you, the student, are going to work off of. All right? Let's discuss a few factors here. Again, always have your lab handy. All right? Here's what we got. We got a situation from the first floor to the second floor. We got to get Johnny up on the second floor somehow. We took measurements, and you'll see in your example, we're using these. These are pretty simple. All right, you may come into fractions and stuff like that. So what I suggest that you do is once you get this familiarized, do a couple practice runs. Use the same board if you want after you get it approved. All right, but play with these numbers because these are the numbers that you're always going to have to deal with. All right. All right, so we got a 60-inch, and this is called a rise. All right. We have 70 inches, which is going to be called the run. All right, so know those terms because they're important. You got to know these things. All right, rise and run because we got to speak the same language. All right, this isn't NASA where we, calculate some of it in metric and some of it in standard, and thing flies off into outer space somewhere. All right, so let's look at your example in your handout here today. At the very top, part 1, they're explaining to you how to find the number of risers. The number of risers. We have 60 inches here. Divide it. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, you don't want to minus that. You'll come up in the short end of it. By 7. All right. Now, that is the 7 inches of the height of the riser. All right. Now that will give you, what is it, 8.57? All right. You can't have 8.57. So what they do in the field is that they just eliminate anything past the decimal point. This gives us 8 risers. Now I keep doing this, risers. So if I make a mistake, just, remind me here. We got 8 risers, not 8-inch risers. We have 8 risers that we need to build off from here to here. Remember, you're going to see in your paperwork that it comes out to 8, but we're going to subtract 1 riser. The reason being is as you're going up steps, eventually the last riser is right there. All right? Well, you only get 7 risers because you subtracted 1 because the floor counts as 1. So just try to get that in the concept there. All right? So as your instructions state, we know that we have 60-inch rise. We know that we now have 8 risers. What we need to find out next is how many inches on that of each riser it's going to be. So therefore, we take the 60 inches divided by 8, and I think it gives us 7.5. All right? Yeah. So let's recap this. We have, in height, the riser. Okay, we had 60-inch rise there. We said that it was going to be 7 inches, and 7 inches, there's a rule that you need to remember. And it's 18-inch rule. Now this 7-inch, we're using it just for, that's what we want, 7-inch rise. Somebody may want 7.5 or 8-inch or, 6.5 inches. It depends on the circumstance. Where are you in a handicapped area? That plays a big role, right? The tread may be longer. But the big question is when you take all this information, this 18 is the standard for combining the inches of both the height of the tread, or height of the rise, and the length of the tread. If those two numbers are under 18, typically it's okay by code. You're going to still need to check it, but more than likely it's going to be fine. If you go over this, then you're going to have to adjust your numbers, all right? And it's always going to start with the height of the rise. Excuse me. So, 18 inches. Memorize that one, all right? And I want you to play with numbers, all right? Get familiar with this thing. Because if you change 7 inches, let's say you want to do 8. Okay, put 8 in there. Play around with the different numbers and see what happens. When you lengthen or shorten your treads, your treads and your risers. Excuse me. Risers, treads. Okay? Just play around with it and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right? So we have 8 risers at 7.5 inches each. All right? So that takes care of this situation for right now. All right? Now you'll look in your instructions and you'll see that we give you some information there that for all intents and purposes you really do need. Okay? So now we're going to work on the run. We know that we have actually 7 risers. Remember, we had to subtract that 1. All right? So we're really working with the number 7 for risers only. Now we're going to go and work on the run. We know that the run is 70 inches. We need to divide that 70 inches by our number of actual risers, which in this case is 7. All right? Then we come up with 10-inch treads. All right? So let's take a grasp of this, take a breather, understand why we're getting 7, how that came about. You can look at your pictures in the book, and they'll help you out as well as in the lab. And be sure you understand this and understand how you got the height of each riser. Remember, we have to abide by the code, which is 7.5 and 10 inches. All right? This only gives us 17.5 inches. So therefore, we're within code standard. Now, those numbers are always going to change. All right? Fractional reasons, they may want it to curve, whatever. But the rule is 1 set of flight can't be over 18 inches. Okay? All right, so we understand all this. Now, let's look at your instructions and see how we're going to put all this together. We have our Carpenter square. Now, we know that it's going to be 7.5 inches high, our rise. So, what I always tell the students to do is lay the square, the Carpenter square down on your work. We're going to work from our left to our right. And you'll see the heel. The heel is always pointing towards you. The first piece, I'm going to go down and lock this in at 7.5 because this is going to be our rise. All right? Now, don't put this like that. All right? Don't put, you got to use the edge of these pieces, the locking devices. Whoops. Okay, so that you can see that it's at 7.5 inches. This is the number riser, or the height of the riser. This is the number of treads at 10 inches. All right? Or the length of the tread, excuse me. All right? Now, whatever you do not use pliers on these, all right? It's not a permanent fixture. Hand tightness, plenty enough. But what I want you to fully understand is where you're putting these edges at. That's important. If you put them in the wrong slot, you're going to come up with the wrong answers. I told you earlier that we do it in pencil first, so if you do make a mistake, you can erase it. All right? And I also told you that we're going to start on our left, all right, side of this board. Now, in your instructions, and I think they're on the between the 3rd and the 4th page, all right, the very first thing that we need to do is set our square, the Carpenter square, so that we have the first riser, all right? Now you notice that the heel, all right, that's how I'm squaring this up, all right? The heel is right at the back of the board, all right? My 7.5 inch is right there. Now, I marked it in pencil. Let me mark it. And you can, I prefer to do it all in pencil and then come back. Yeah, it's a little bit more work. But if I've made a mistake somewhere, I can fix it before it gets too hard. All right? So let me show you something here. Now I know you're looking at it from upside down. All right? But imagine this, when you cut this off, this is one of your risers. All right? And you'll see that as we lay this out. Now, something else that the book may or may not go into. What you want to do is you want to square this off. And this is going to come at a later date here. All right? But when you go to do this, you want to have this at the proper angle. And we'll show you how to do that. Because down here at the very end, all right, you may have a 2x8, 2x6, 2x4 nailed into the floor as a support system. All right? So you're going to have to notch a little piece out where that's going to sit down in there. All right? But we'll go through this all in detail. So we know that this, oops, is my number one riser, right? So now we take the tool and we move it to the top, and you're lining up the 10 inches and the 7.5, and it does it automatically for you, all right? So we can mark it in pencil. We can mark it in marker. I always, like I said, especially when you're starting out, do it in pencil. Now, if we take our tape measure, and I'm asking you to do this because it'll help you out in the long run, but measure it and be sure that your riser is 7.5 inches high. We come over here and we check the riser is 7.5, and the tread is at 10 inches. All right? You got to go from corner to corner. Now, remember in steps, there's always going to be a lip on that step, unless it's concrete or something like that, or carpet can go over it. But if it's wooden floors or wooden steps, it's going to have a little lip over there, about 3/4 of an inch. You may need to add that when you're working. Well, you will need to add that, but you're going to have to look at the plans first, okay? And be sure there is an overlap. All right? So, we got our first riser, our tread, our second riser. Now, I'm going to just go through, because now it should be almost idiot-proof, all right, to continue doing this. But, you know, if you get in a rush, you're going to forget something, all right? Take your time, because once you cut this, that's it, all right? Again, I line up my 10 with my first or my second riser where it ended at. I bring them down, be sure they're sound and squared. All right. And you follow that all the way through. Now you'll notice what I'm talking about if you can't see it. Also depends on your pencil. So we'll use this as a learning tool. All right. If you're not pushing off clean, you'll see it right away. All right. So again, line it up, square it up, mark it. All right. Now you'll see that the pencil marks are clear enough, but I'm just suggesting that the students use it as an exercise in how to lay out a set of steps. And what I always try to do with my pencil is just keep rotating it, all right? Because you'll find out that otherwise it's going to run out real quick. And again, depends on the amount of pressure it just stick on it. Okay. Now, the classroom's a real easy place to work at. It's nice and dry and clean. And hopefully, we're putting the steps in, it's going to be nice and dry and clean. All right. So, give me a minute, and I'm going to mark in all the treads and risers with the black felt and come back. All right, so we're back here, and you'll notice that I laid out all the other treads and risers. Now you also notice at this corner that, hey, what happened here, you know? Well, this line is going to continue through, because remember, you're at a certain angle, and this piece is going to be attached to a 2x6, 2x8, so that when you hit this step, the next step that you take is going to be another tread, which is the second floor. What I have to explain to you, and I can't do it here, but understand that you got to read the blueprints and take good measurements when you're ready to look at the blueprints, but don't trust them. Measure once, measure twice, and then cut. All right? Because there's going to be a difference sometimes. Somebody may have, at the last minute, decided, hey, I want to put a wood floor instead of carpet. Well, that's going to make major difference when you do all this. All right? So please just take that into advice. But what's important is that you fully understand how to lay this puppy out. Now, what you see me doing here is I'm just following my line through. All right? Now, I X that off because that's going to be excess waste. All right? Now, we're down here, and remember I was telling you that this piece down here is going to get cut. Well, you notice that I took all my jewelry off of my tool here. And what I'm going to do is, to be sure that it's square, is I just marry it up with the second riser. All right? Bring it down, square it up so that my heel is at the bottom. And hopefully, if I did it right, those 2 points come together. Right? Because when I cut this off, that's the first riser. So remember I told you, and you'll see a line drawing in your picture there, that if you can imagine, once you cut out all these little triangles and you put it at the proper angle, all right? Remember you're nailing a piece up there? Well, you got to nail something here because it has to be secure. And the best way to do that is typically this is 1.5 inches. So some board is going to be 1.5 inches, whatever you're working with. You're the carpenter, you figure it out. Okay? Now, if I'm using a 2x4, then I go 3.5 inches out. If I use a 2x6, then I'm going to go out 5.5. All right? Then all I have to do is just square it up. All right? Now, this piece and this gets cut out. Why? If you can literally and figuratively look at this in a three-dimensional situation, you'll see that if this is my first riser and this is my first tread, then this will be secured to the footer, for better term, the footer, so that it won't move around. So when you cut this out, you're cutting it all out with a handsaw. All right? It works best that way. Sometimes you can pull out your jigsaw and do it, kind of cuts here, cuts there, and then come back and get it cleaned with the saw. All right? I know everybody likes power tools, all right? But we're not trying to get a speed demon. You're not trying to pull, build 400 of these things for an apartment complex, all right? But we can figure out that we have 1, 2, 3 treads, 4 treads, 5 treads, 6 treads, 7 treads, 8 treads. Right. Okay? So, understand that, and you'll be perfectly fine doing the exercise. Now, when you see me next time on this, we're going to cut this out, and I'm going to show you how to cut out the pieces so that you have the stairs. Now, while we got some quiet and it's calm, please pay attention to some of this stuff, okay? This, where your numbers are, is what you're going to cut out. Don't come over here and cut this out, all right? I know it's self-explanatory and it looks pretty simple, but students have a tendency of being in a rush, and then they'll, oh, wow, what the hell? And every semester, at least 2 students will go there about halfway and then realize, crap, I just did the almighty sin, okay? Because remember, we're going to cut one piece all the way off. Then we're going to come down here and cut this little piece off. This is what I'm suggesting you do because it's much easier to figure this out. Then if you're right-handed, it's easier to turn this around and start making your cuts into these pieces. Now, if it's simplified, make an X. Make it idiot-proof. Well, I wish I could say idiot-proof, but it doesn't always stand. All right? So, there's where you're at, okay? And this is how you lay out a set of steps. Now, in the real world, if you have to do a lot of these, they're going to have a jig that just drops down. You mark it, then you hand it off to the newbie, and he's going to sit there and cut with the saw all day long, all right? Because he's an apprentice. And he gets all crappy jobs. So hopefully you understand all of this concept. You understand how to lay out the board. Remind yourself that when you, and I always try to tell the students, you should watch the video on my YouTube, study the material, then within 24 hours, plan it to come in the following day, if not that day. Because this is new for most people, and it's very confusing at first. But remember, when you come in, you tell them, hey, I need to do lab 9 for 145, and I need the laptop so that you can pull up the program, and while you're laying this out, you can be watching it. So be paying close attention to that laptop and where it's at, all right? If it's raining, of course, you'll probably be doing it inside, all right? Hopefully, all right? We get some dedicated students get running away there, all right? I appreciate your time. I hope that the steps work out for you correctly and that you enjoy your time here at the college, all right? So therefore, we know the treads, we know the risers, we marked everything off. Now we can take this to our work area. Typically, you'll lay this out outside because carpenters do everything outside for the most part. And you'll have your own work area, all right? So you don't have to fight with the other students, all right? So I'm hoping that this program will help you decipher the information that's in the textbook as well as in the lab exercise, all right? And there'll always be updates on this stuff because there may be an easier way to perform this. And, but we'll let you know, all right? Again, when you see me next time, we'll be cutting this baby. Thank you. Well, welcome back. Now we're going to do the physical part of it as far as the manual labor on this thing and cutting it. So, again, remember your tools are in your wall locker, so be sure you know by now where those are at. So be sure you have your saws, all right, both hand saw, circular saw, and you may need the jigsaw, which we only have one right now, so it's in the cabinet inside, and I'll show you where that's at. Be sure you have your safety glasses and gloves, all right? Now, before anything, you see that on the hand saws we have these little pieces of protection. Now these could change with different configurations depending on how wore out they are. I know this may be looking like an antique, all right, but ours do a really nice job just trying to finish it so that you understand what you got to do. All right? Now, the next big thing, the rule of thumb with saws is you only need enough blade to do the job. So again, remember how to reset this, okay? You've used it before, so you should not have a big issue with that. Excuse me. All right? Lay it up against there. Raise it so that the blade is just barely cutting in or right up underneath, about 1/8 of an inch. All right. Let me set this aside right now. And I'm going to do a couple of the ends, and then we're going to do 2 of the cutouts, and then the rest of it is self-explanatory. I'm not going to bore you with this. All right. Safety, utmost concern. This is a fine day today. I think it might break 50. Now, be sure that your saw is unplugged when you're doing any adjustments. What we want to do over here, okay? Now, if by chance you want to secure it a little bit better, you can put C-clamps on this. We have them inside. You know where those are at. You can do that. Now, what we're going to do first is I'm going to hack off this one end right here. Then I'm going to hack off this one end. All right? When you're doing this, pay attention to how thick your blade is. All right? I'm going to cut right on my black line. Okay? So, the first thing is get my material where it's comfortable to me. All right? Check it out. Be sure I have 100% RPMs. All right? Always be sure your equipment's secured. Now, just for demonstration purposes, let me show you what's going on here. You see where we cut this off? Just imagine this being a stud or some sort of 2x4 footer. You see how your stairs are going up? All right, now maybe it starts to make a little bit more sense. All right, now, here comes the tricky part. Will we fail you if you cut way into this? No. In real life, most of the people do it anyway. But we're just trying to teach you the proper way of doing it. I know it's a little bit more time consuming, but the final thing is you're going to do it. All right, so again, you want to run this all the way up to about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. All right? Then I come over, re-secure my equipment. Now guys, I know that this is a little time consuming, okay? But just cut one at a time. So you get the feel of everything going on. Then just take the handsaw and you just want to trim it up so it makes it look nice. All right? All right? So you should come out with little triangles. All right? Now, I'm going to do another one. Then I expect you to understand how to go through the rest of them. All right? Remember, you can, because this is off, we'll just cut this out with the circular saw and I'll show you what's going on there. Always remember about the weight of the unit. Now, if you get into a hurry, you'll see people do this. This is not recommended. Well, that's just crap work, okay? Get it cleaned up, do it right the first time. All right. Just clean it up. All right? I think you fully understand what's being required of you up to this point. All right? You cut off the ends. You can notch your stud where it's going to be on your support net. You see how it locks in, all right, to the side of the stud. And then this is your tread. This is your rise, all right? And remember, that tread, we measured out at 10 inches. When you come back to finish it, depending on if you're a fine finisher or the rough end carpenter, if you're putting boards on there, you'll probably have a 3/4 of an inch overhang with the boards. May it be oak or plywood or whatever the hell they're building it out of. All right? Now, again, when you're done with this project out here, not only are you going to clean up, but you're going to cut these in 16-inch pieces. And all of that goes into your wood container, and you know where that's at this time. What I also want you to do is loosen it and bring it back to the original setting. Okay? And remember, all equipment gets cleaned before you put it back in the shed. All right? So you go bring this over to the air hose, blow it off, take care of your tools. You know, I mean, let's face it. Money's getting tight. And if you have a tendency of ruining stuff, then you'll probably end up doing this by hand. All right? So, because the task will get accomplished. Just depends on how you want to go about doing it. So if you see anybody abusing the equipment, let me know. All right? Again, when you are done with the handsaw and you're going to put it back in its sleeve. All right? And be careful, because if you're not paying attention on this, this will bite you. All right? And we change these out so they may be different things, PVC, whatever we got at the time. All right? If you have any questions, ask the instructors, and they'll assist you in any way necessary. Thank you.